Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern, and today we are taking another look at Gravity Falls as Pokemon. You guys seem to really enjoy the last time that we did this, so I wanted to jump right on in, specifically with Ford Pine's notebook, looking at types of monsters and creatures that may appear within that notebook themselves, some of which we haven't seen within the notebook, but they do fit that same niche. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and hop right into it with the floating eyeballs as a Pokemon. So this is such a simple design that I thought, how am I going to expand on it further? Well, I'm going to do something that I haven't done in these videos yet. I'm going to make a regional variant for this Pokemon. So I went with Woobat. The reason because as I was looking at eyeball-shaped Pokemon, round Pokemon with wings, I realized we actually already have one. The only difference is that its whole motif revolves around love and affection. So what if I changed it just a little bit? I didn't want to go too far away, but I wanted to give it that idea that its body and shape mimic that of one of these floating eyeballs. So I changed the nose to be less heart-shaped and more round. The idea is if you see this thing from afar, it does give off the vibe that it is a flying eyeball, much like we see in Gravity Falls. So I went also and changed the nose color, making it red. I know the eyes in Gravity Falls actually fluctuate between orange and green and brown, but I felt like a big floating red eye captures a lot more of the energy without it actually being a floating eyeball. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the design. Is it cool to have a variant of a already existing Pokemon in this series? Or is it, no, we'd love to see more original stuff? I think for this instance, it really works. And I think utilizing the shapes that are already at play in this existing Pokemon really allow it to have this flavor to it. So here we have, well, sorry, that's been happening a lot recently, just kind of ignore it for now. Here we have our regional Woobat for our Gravity Falls based region. It's not anything that I'm going to turn into anything. I think Fruppy Art's doing a fantastic job as is. So for this instance, I'm just going to call it Gravity Falls Woobat Graphalian Woobat. For the shiny, I made that eye much more greenish. And again, the idea is that from afar, this looks a lot more akin to one of those floating eyes. It has a lot of the same stats as Woobat, maybe changed a little bit here and there just to give it some more roundness to the numbers. But apart from that, this is our regional Woobat. Not too much has changed. Now, if we're gonna go with something as familiar as a Woobat, even a regional one, I wanted to make some changes to its evolution while still maintaining that Gravity Falls vibe. So instead of it being just a flat out bat evolution, I wanted to bring in the pterosaur or the pterodactyl that we see in other episodes of the show. If you're a big fan of the show, you'll know that the pterodactyl has actually appeared in the opening credits montage a couple times, but it wasn't shown until a little bit later. We had to kind of earn it. So I wanted to bring in those aspects, and what if we put a bat skin over a pterodactyl? I did a couple things to make that happen. One is Swoobat, the natural evolution of Woobat, has its ears kind of combined into a singular ear shape, pointed up. Well, what if I pointed that backwards? I could create that crest more similar to the pterodactyl. I also changed the nose because bats are known for having these very flappy and convoluted nose shapes. Well, what if I made it a little bit more hardened and turned it into something more akin to a beak while still feeling like a bat nose? I don't know, maybe I overstepped, maybe I went a little bit too far with the design thinking, what if a bat became a pterodactyl? But I'm pretty happy with the way that it's going, and I think it captures a lot of those same Swoobat vibes without being ultimately the same Pokemon. And I think a lot of that comes from that injection of the pterosaur type of energy. So I gave it these long, like big oversized pincer type hands, or feet, I should say, good for the grabbing, as well as kept the wings something more akin to bats, but really dove into the face and tail for that pterodactyl energy. I also kept that fur around the neck, and it feels a lot like it is kind of just a stretched out Swoobat, which may be the vibe I was going for. I don't entirely know, but I do know this. As I was drawing this design, I was really nervous. Will this work? Will this translate well? And once we apply the shadows and we begin applying the highlights and things like that and throwing it over our background lay, it quickly became one of my favorite designs. It may be a little goofy, but Swoobat is pretty goofy as well, so it feels like it fits. And I do love a good bat Pokemon. As much as I am of the generation that grew up having to deal with Zubat after Zubat after Zubat, I think that we've come a long way in making bat Pokemon a lot cooler. Crobat is actually one of my favorite Pokemon, and it was a shame that the evolution method ended up being friendship because it meant that I had to hang out with a Golbat for more time than I really wanted to. But yeah, I think Pokemon's come a long way in the way of bat designs. So I wanted to follow that same trend here and give it a whole new and different spin on what we already know with this Pokemon. So here we have, I'm sorry, I do not know why that keeps happening. Ever since I found that broken cryogenics container back in the lab, it's been a nightmare. So just kind of bear with me a little bit, but this is Rubat. Ru meaning R-U-E, Ru, to bitterly regret something one is done or allowed to happen. Almost like this has gone from being the lovey and heart type Pokemon to being the broken heart or vengeful Pokemon. So it is still the bat Pokemon. For the shiny, I brought in some blue just to kind of call back to the Swoobat evolution. It's got a little bit of a pump up in stats, and you'll notice that it's actually rock flying type. If I had a nickel for every time that a pterodactyl type Pokemon was rock flying type, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. It just kind of fit. It's still very much a fossil-y type Pokemon, and like I said, I see this almost as being the ancestor to Pokemon like Woobat and Swoobat, so rock and flying kind of felt like it worked out for me here. Next up is the best Pokemon, based on the best character in the show. Sorry, my bias is showing a little bit, but I knew I had to tackle one of my favorite monsters, not in Ford's actual journal, but really should be, and that is the multi-bear. How are we gonna make this a Pokemon? That was kind of the thought running through my head the entire time. That is a monstrous form, and how do we capture that in something like Pokemon? Well, I started by drawing the heads, kind of coming up with a design that I liked for the main head, and I found myself making these like mutton chop type of designs to the muzzle area, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. What if each one had almost its own personality? Kind of like we see with Execute and Executor, but on a bear. And I could showcase that different personality through the different hairstyles. So you'll see here, and I'll make some changes to the arm-based bears as we go later, but you'll see here the main head has these mutton chops and a mohawk type, and that mohawk flows into this like beard and mutton chop look of the top bear, and the arms will have their own thing going on too. They'll get these big bushy beards, which really allow me to take it easy on how I design the hands. It ended up being an absolute godsend in how that worked out. I'm not even gonna say how I designed it because it just kind of happened, and I thought, oh wow, this works. I wanted to feel very abrasive, so I used a lot of harsher shapes, these pointed outcroppings of hair and fur, and doing so, I decided to just kind of go away with the paws. I thought, well, if we just move away from the paws and go for a more Blaziken foot type situation with just fur, it actually makes it feel a lot more beastly and ravenous, I think. Just because to give it hands makes it feel like it's almost a little bit more humanesque, makes it feel like it's a little bit more tangible in a way. I don't know. I just decided if I move away from the actual paws, which mimicked hands, and go with this more fallen fur type of look, it made it feel much more beastly. And that's the idea with this design, based off of the multi-bear from the show, is that it's a beast. It kind of exists just for this hunt of the Manitars. So I wanted to do that. Another fun little Easter egg that you may find if you're watching this video, each of the heads has this purple underlining to the eyes to make it look tired or angry. Mostly the other heads all have this purple and it makes them look a little bit more tired, but I use this red to bring in this rage to the main head area. And yeah, I think it works out. Using those various colors to make it gray and brown, I think allow for a lot of play between the actual energy. You know, it's not too distracted by all this crazy color. Instead, we can focus on the direction and shapes that are going into place and making this design, in what my opinion is, make the design work. So yeah, I like it a lot. I also enjoy that the actual multi-bear is kind of a black bear, but it's more grayish and smoky. I think it would have been really easy for the designers to say, well, it's a grizzly, make it brown, it's a black bear, make it pitch black. But instead it was this muted grayish color, and I wanted to capture that same type of color here. So the colors are a little bit more muted, and I get to play around a lot with the shiny given that aspect. So stick around just a second, we'll show off the shiny. Again, this is one that I'm very happy with, and it's based off of my favorite character, voiced by the talented Alfred Molina in the show Gravity Falls. So I'm super pumped about it. I'm super excited to see what you guys think. So here, okay. Here we have Beberar. It's the word bear within the word bear. It is a pure fighting type and is the multi-bear Pokemon. You'll notice that that shiny just jumps out at you with such vigor. And the reason is because, being that multi-bear is a huge fan of Icelandic pop sensation Baba in the show, I wanted to capture that. So I gave it these almost like disco punk pop type of colors with those blues and those magentas, and really allowing it to just pop. This is definitely a shiny that you will spot from a mile away when playing any sort of game. I just love this design so much. I love the shapes. I love the pointed angular edges over this big, round, burly body. And coming in not knowing what I was going to do with the multiple bear heads, I feel like this was the best case scenario, fitting all these heads in this way. And when you catch this Pokemon, you don't just get one friend, you get 4. So yeah, here's Beberar. But we of course can't have the multi-bear as a Pokemon unless we're willing to bring in their adversary, the Manatar from Gravity Falls. It kind of came to me in a dream. I was like, I know exactly what I want to do. I don't know, maybe it was because this character is so simple that it would be fun and easy to kind of turn it into a Pokemon. Or maybe it's because, given my astrology videos, I already had Bull Human on my bingo sheet of stuff that I had to think about and be on patrol for ideal-wise. But either way, I'm happy with the way it turned out. I wanted to give that beard kind of the main focus here, as well as make those horns just absolutely massive. This is a Pokemon designed after overcompensation, and it's got to feel that way. I gave it almost like, how do you incorporate these hooves into the hands? Well, what if I made them almost like these workers' gloves, or these like superhero type of gauntlets? And so I brought the hooves from being on the fingers or on the hoof type hands to coming up into these, like I said, workers' gloves, almost like big bulky welder's gloves. So I did that. I also brought in, like I said, these oversized horns, because that's how you show off your masculinity. When you're a bull, when you're a ox, when you're a Manatar, you've got to show off how big and strong of a man you are by the size of your antlers. Horns, that's the word, by the size of your horns. So the rest of it was all just kind of set dressing, giving it this overall type of look to the clothing, quote unquote, of the Pokemon, so that it looks like it's a worker, looks like it is a man's man. And I wanted to dive headfirst into that, which also made this cool gradient going from the bottom of the design to the top that I'm really, really happy with. I didn't think that I would like it so much until I actually saw it in effect, of these dark colors kind of blending up into the browns of this beard, into the reds of the skin, fur stuff. Man, this truly is a monster now that I think about it. But yeah, I'm pumped about it because it captures not just the energy and the design of the Manatar as a character and as a beast in this world, but it also has that symbology of kind of being an overcompensating jerk. I mean, its whole thing is that it wants to capture or kill the multi-bear. So, which again is one of my favorite guys. So obviously he's got to be kind of a jerk to do that. And so here we have Toroman. Toroman is our Minotaur-Manatar hybrid cross class. I see this almost as being a version exclusive against the multi-bear Pokemon, our Beberar. Man, I really messed myself up with that decision. But this will be a version exclusive the way that I see it. They're both fighting type and they have the exact same spread of stats. And so they'd be a perfect match against each other. It's never known who's gonna win. And much like our Beberar has this over-the-top, very colorful type of shiny, here we have black, because we are so cool. We're too cool for color. We need to be just overall angsty. And so he has a black shiny. A couple other things that really work with that is it's very much akin to our regional Tauros that we saw in the Paldea region, as well as fitting the leader of the Manitars, who is a black bull. So it really works. This is also the masculine Pokemon. Man, any trainer who has this on their team is gonna have their hands full, because this thing is in charge, or at least it believes that it is. And that brings us to the end of our video today, where we, I'm sorry, I actually don't remember drawing this one. Maybe a memory that I wanted gone or erased, but okay. You know what? Yeah, it's actually coming back to me. Let me just hop into the design elements for this one. So I guess I wanted something that appeared more human. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah, so I looked at some of the references to different characters throughout Gravity Falls and saw a lot of evidence towards cloning or separate versions of one another. And if you've finished the show, then you kind of know where that's all going. We have characters like Paper Dipper and Paper Jam Dipper, who is also the best character on the show. We also have the wax dummies, as well as something else that I can't remember. Something that takes shape. I don't know. It'll come back to me. It'll come to me. Don't worry about it. But we have a lot of these instances of doubles, and so I wanted to incorporate that into an idea here with a waxy double type of character. So I wanted it to look very much like your average just little kid. Picture like a youngster Joey type with their backpack, their hat, ready to go on an adventure, but it does hide a sinister secret behind it. Maybe this is the type of Pokemon that you come across and from afar you start running to them. Oh boy, another trainer, someone who's sharing on this adventure with me, only to discover as you get closer that they're not quite what they appear. It really takes into account a lot of the inspiration behind those clone-y type of characters. It has the same color, texture, size of a character like the Paper Dippers, but is made almost entirely out of wax, with some other details cropping up here and there, maybe an eye, maybe a mouth. Very much luring trainers who are looking for a challenge in for a closer look. And then you get Propal, a combination of petroleum and protagonist and Pal. It is the wax Pokemon, normal type, and you can see by its stats that it is just a fairly normal dude. I wanted to calculate it based off of the idea that this very much could just feel like fighting a clone of yourself. It's nothing too crazy powerful, obviously beyond that of like a baby Pokemon or maybe some first stages, but apart from that, it's just any other guy. For its shiny, I wanted to go with that ghostly green type of slime that we see in shows like Ghostbusters, for which Gravity Falls drew a lot of inspiration. It's a little bit shorter than your average player, very much feeling like a young kid, someone that a trainer would want to go and help before something else happens. It's all coming back to me now. Yeah, the things that I wanted to forget, the creatures that I didn't want to explore. Of course, the Shapeshifter. One of the most powerful antagonists of the early episodes of Gravity Falls. We already tackled Bill, but who could hold a candle to that much power? Of course, it would be the Shapeshifter. While he's not as dimensionally powerful, he is still something that you don't want to trifle with. Encountered deep within the bunker, Ford raised this thing from when it had first hatched into this. Yeah, so that's what was in the cryogenic. Now I remember. How could I possibly have forgotten? Well, at any rate, I wanted to capture a lot of the base proportions of the Shapeshifter. It has this already very monstrous body that I just kind of wanted to slim down and make a little bit more grounded. So I gave it that kind of clawish hand that it has and just expanded on that to be an actual claw. Made the mouth a little bit more akin to those trickstery type of Pokemon. It actually feels a lot like a Nabbit from the Mario series, which I'm perfectly okay with. I actually really love that. I also wanted to bring back in that eye that we had in the previous iteration, very much with that one feeling like a mimic, whereas this one is no longer needing to hide, no longer needing to mimic anything other than what it wants to. It doesn't have to hide as a trainer to lure in its prey. It could hide as anything. It could change shape into anything it wants. Maybe it's a lost Pokeball or Ultra Ball off on the side of the road. Maybe it's that Pokemon that you've been looking for. Maybe, it could be the shiny version of a Pokemon you've been looking for. All in effort to draw you in, to ready itself for battle. So it still has some of those waxy type of aesthetic designs that I have. It's still going to have that same waxy or clear coat type of color that even the Shapeshifter has. I just made a couple changes just to give it a little bit more of a separate energy. So rather than it having those purpley accents, I wanted to go with this more green, this very irradiated type of feel, like it's been hidden away, whether that be by someone trying to keep it out of sight or whether that be because it prefers the dark. I gave it this green type of energy motif. I also wanted to capture some of like the inner workings by giving it this rib type of design within its body. And almost like there's this energy inside of it. I don't know. I played with the design a lot and wanted to get away from just drawing the shapeshifter as a Pokemon, and rather than give it that one-to-one design, give it something that felt like it had its own separate energy to it, making it feel more my own. Maybe that's the wrong way to go with something that can change its shape and look like anything else. Maybe being my own was the wrong case. I mean, that's kind of why it had such a vendetta against Ford in the first place, isn't it? Am I repeating the same mistakes that researchers and scientists before me have that led to their eventual demise? I'm probably overthinking it. It's not worth dwelling on too heavily. Either way, here is our Pokemon, one that I have actually shared in our Discord and on our Patreon prior to this coming out, and I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you like it. So this is the evolution of Propal, still the wax Pokemon. This is Malform, based on the term malform, meaning formed bad, and boy, is it formed bad. Well, it's formed well, but it is a bad guy. For the shiny, I wanted to capture that sun-deprived look that even the original shapeshifter had by giving it those pinkish hues, almost like it has albinism. I am gonna hear a lot of you guys probably say, why didn't you use purple? Purple are the colors that are utilized within the initial design, and honestly, I just wanted to have a little bit more fun with it. I wanted to jump into some of those greens that give that irradiated, living in a bunker type of look. You'll also see that it gets the fighting type. And how's that gonna work with this transformational quality of the Pokemon? I don't know. I'd love to hear what you guys think. You guys do such a wonderful job in the comments of letting me know whenever I do these challenges, what abilities you think it should have, whether those be ones that exist or ones that you yourself write. Give me those. Give me some dex entries. Let me know what the next page of Ford's journal on the shapeshifter, this time Malform, would read as. I think it'd be a fun little experiment, and I'm not done experimenting yet. As much as I've learned the downfall of those types of things, especially with this thing escaping its cryogenics, ransacking my lab, and just kind of turning everything upside down, I want to hear what you guys think. So let me know down in the comments. You can also like and subscribe to show me your support, or reach out to me on Ko-fi or on Patreon, where you can show support in various other ways. Like I said, the Patreon and my Discord group down below actually got to see some sneak peeks at these guys prior to them coming out in video, so I hope that I can see you there. Our Discord's a pretty quickly growing little community. We're about to hit 200 people in that Discord. Maybe you'll be user 200. We're going to be holding a contest of sorts. I still have to figure out what that is once we hit that 200 mark. So yeah, sounds like you know where to find me. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.